you think some of the older, more dated comic book films, for example, Daredevil, Hulk 2003, are more interesting to watch now after the comic book genre has become so oversaturated? I wouldn't put them all in the same category, but even watching Spider-Man 2 in the theater a couple days back, and then talking to, I did it as a fan meetup, so a bunch of fans were there, and we talking about it. Most of them are significantly younger than me, and so they're seeing it in the theater for the very first time. They didn't grow up watching it necessarily, or they watched it well after it had come out, after they had already started watching MCU films. So their perspective on it coming into it is very different from mine. And the thing that immediately just stands out is just like, it's very Sam Raimi. It has a distinct style to it. His corny humor. I don't use corny as a negative, but there's a goofiness to a lot of what he does. There's horror influences in there. There's all sorts of stuff where like people run up to the camera and start screaming right at the camera, or they put a newspaper right in front of the camera. And then all throughout the movie, Spider-Man is helping the police, catching bank robbers, getting people out of a burning building, doing local superhero stuff. And then you watch Daredevil, and Daredevil is fighting local crime in his community, and the threat is a local villain. You watch Hulk 2003, and there's all these ways in which they tried to make each frame look like a frame out of a comic book. So it's such a distinct style. A lot of it doesn't work at all. Some of it is very interesting. And then you see what the genre's turned into, where they're just big blockbusters. In particular with Marvel, they're starting to become homogenous. People always kind of accused them of that. And then you see what like the last couple phases have been like, and you see it a lot more like overtly becoming homogenous. And then you go back and watch from an earlier age where they hadn't figured it out yet. They hadn't figured out what the most broad appeal formula was. And so they're dated, they're aged, some things don't look very good, but they're also kind of interesting. This is different. So, I mean, I would agree with this in the sense that you're going back and you're watching movies where they were trying to figure it out. And they were taking chances that they don't take now as much. They're taking different chances where, we're getting some R-rated superhero movies or more R-rated superhero movies, crass one. Like, they're doing things they didn't do before. But they've stopped doing other things, like the very comic booky stuff where you're trying to make frames in the movie look like frames from the comics, and transitioning using comic paneling and stuff like that, that 20 years ago sounds really smart because comics weren't as comic book movies weren't as mainstream then as they are now. And so you're still like adapting comic books is the way you're thinking about it, rather than you're just making mainstream films for people that have never picked up a comic book. Those are different things. Oh, I'm adapting a comic book. We're pulling the comic book. Comic book. Oh, what if we did comic panels? If you're making comic book movies for people that don't read comic books, all of us, and the movie brand is so much bigger than the comic brand. All of a sudden, all those comic book panel ideas don't make any sense anymore. But so then they're just big mainstream blockbusters, but you lose something because of that. So you go back and watch the old movies, and there's a lot in there. Own flaws, places that they didn't work. Some of it didn't work. Some of the movies just, they hadn't figured out how to structure a film, a comic book story into a movie yet, consistently, and repeat it, and figured it out yet. But there's also other things that are interesting. So I'd agree with a lot of that. Most of these clips are pulled from my Patreon live streams. I do about 6 live streams every single month. For $2 per month, $20 per year, you can get access to all the exclusive videos and live streams. For $5 per month, you get your name on my end card. At the top tier, you get a 30-minute video chat with me each month. The link down below in the description has more information.